Hello there girls and boys and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna share with you a plugin that is simply fantastic. You know that I happen to be a huge Eventide fan, and to be frank, they got me by surprise when they re-released their fantastic recreation plugin version, of course, of the H3000 and its band delays effect. This time around they recreated the entire plugin from the ground up and promising the delivery of a much better tone. And I gotta tell you, well, it's amazing. You heard in the introduction to this video plenty of different examples of me using these plugins in the production of this track. And in this video, I'm gonna be disclosing some of those sounds while explaining to you how the plugin works. So if you wanna know more about this, well, this is your channel. But before we go, if it's your first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here I show you every single thing I do in order to create, write, produce, and of course perform my music live. Because I know that making a living as a musician is not a dream, it's a possibility. And if I can do it, of course you could do it. With that being said, let's rock and roll. So welcome back girls and boys to Logic Pro X. In front of us we got the project that I'm gonna use to show you how this plugin works. And by the way, this is the exact same project that I used to create the track that I showed you at the beginning of this video. And here we got the H3000 in all its terribly simple and yet profound looking glory. This is how it would look like whenever you load this bad boy or insert it on any of your channels. But here's the big one. This is just a very brief representation of what this plugin is capable of. I'm gonna first show you the sound and then I'm gonna explain to you the interface little by little. So this is the one that is inserted on this guy. It sounds like this. Pretty nice delay tail, right? Now, the way that this works is kind of simple. Let me explain. First, the interface is following, of course, the input that we got here, and we got a proper level monitoring, but also we got the first section, which is the soft keys. And in here, the soft keys represent a set of parameters that are going to be affected by this gigantic jog wheel. Right now I got selected this first soft key and see what happens if I move this guy around. We'll start to affect the display over here. And whenever we have the rest of the sound or the sound going through, see what happens. As you have guessed, I have mapped out some of the different elements that comprises this sound to these particular soft keys. I will explain how I did that later on this video, so stay tuned. Then over here we got the program, the expert, and the function modes, which we will be diving into in a few minutes. And of course the jog wheel that you already saw. And in here we got something that is fantastic. This is basically speaking like presets inside of the preset. If you can see over here, as soon as I hover over the number 2, it says rhythm. And if I click on it, you can see that automatically I already switch several parameters over here and also inside of the plugin itself just by the click of a button. If I go once again to the number 1, which says Atmos, look at that. You can actually automate this setting. So you can start to see how cool that is, right? You can simply, by the click of a button, or if you automate it, swap or change the entirety of the internal routing of your plugin very fast and clean and simple. Now, here's the big boy. If you click over here on the expand, alakablam! Now you got the entirety of the complexity that this plugin has to offer. It's much more simpler to understand than it looks. I'm going to try to be brief in this. This plugin works in a matter of modules or blocks. Each of them have its own set of controls that could be found over here, and it's following a routing matrix that, as you can see, it's using patch bay cables like cords, if that works or makes sense to you, to tell you how the signal is flowing. If you want to know more about these guys, let me know in the comment section down below, because each of them have several different functions. For example, just briefly, right now I got a patch on which I have a modulator, which is the pitch shift, that created that kind of quasi-ring modulation to the tone as soon as I began twisting soft key number 1, and also have my delay, and it's been affected in a parallel fashion. If you have work with a wet, dry, wet setting or setup on a guitar, that's very similar. Or if you are mixing and you have an auxiliary bus, it's basically that principle. The thing is that we're doing everything inside of the same plugin. It's really badass. And also, it allows you, for example, let's say that right now you can see that my delay is being modulated by my LFO that I got over here, which, yes, you can actually have different ways to manipulate the internal aspects of the plugin or the blocks in an automatic fashion. Now let me show you something very fun and cool. This is the sound that propelled the entirety of the track. And you can see that I'm using a similar, it's basically the same preset. I created this myself, but you will see that I applied automation. I'm going to be switching between Atmos and Rhythm on the snapshots as the track follows. Let me show you. Badass, right? Exactly what I was explaining to you a few minutes ago. Now, I'm gonna go and move over to a different sound. This time around, I will show you this mock drone, which is a... Let me show you first, and then I will disclose the sound. How about that? This, it's following the principles of one of the most beloved effects, and one of the things that made the H3000 so popular is the micro-pitch shifting capabilities of the device, which in simple terms, it's recreating the tone or the sound that you fed the device with, and creates doubles of it, but slightly detuned and when compared to the original. And as you could hear, I panned them hard left and hard right, and also applied a little bit of modulation. So it's not necessarily speaking steady. When you do that, you create this super wide, super lush sound that allowed this drone to fill in the gaps between the kick drum and the bass. Let me bring back the rest of the mix and you'll see what I mean. I'm gonna begin with the plugin off, and then I'm gonna bring it back. Badass, right? I love that approach. Now, over here, I'm going to introduce you now to the band's delay effect, which is like a much more a specialized version of what the delays coming from the factory plugin are capable of. This is very cool because what it does, as you can see over here, this graphic represents every single one of the repetitions, the delay themselves. But as you can tell, we are applying a gigantic amount of EQ to each of those repetitions. Hence the name, band's delay, because it's actually repeating on a band basis. If you have ever worked with an equalizer, you know what a band is. It's a set of frequencies affected by that band. And it's very, very fun because it allows you to create very interesting repetitions. Let me show you the sound. This is basically just white noise filtered by the Moog itself, but then the delay kicks in and see what happens. Very cool, right? Like a ray gun, if it makes sense to you. I continued with this approach or with this plugin, but I decided to do something much more interesting. Now let me show you a more complex instance of band delays. I decided to add a little bit of sampling, a little bit of human elements, if that makes sense to you. So I decided to apply or bring in the power of sample alchemy, that it's part of the built-in effects or built-in instruments that comes with Logic Pro. This is a fantastic plugin. If you want me to show you how to use it, let me know, but it's a very, very, very effective sampler. Okay, so the thing is this. I decided to apply or to bring in this sample. I'm gonna turn off all of my effect chain, and you will see that it sounds like this. Cool, cool and all, right? But I decided to add flair to it, or flavor to it, by first adding a little bit of control to my sample, because sometimes it was a little bit over the top, and by applying this center channel strip, which is one of my favorite plugins when it comes to producing music, I got a sound that is much more controlled through the use of the leveler. Cool, right? From here, this is the first stage. I went straight ahead and just look up for the fantastic pitch shifter that it's the effect that made the H3000 what it is, and I bring it on and see what happens now. It's starting to add more fun to the tone. From here, I decided to apply round, and this is the default setting. I didn't do anything to it. See what happens when I bring it back. This thing is just excellent. And from here, I went nitty-gritty and I created my own patch, or if I put it correctly, I actually loaded one of the patches that are part of the library that comes with the band delays plugin, but I tweak it to death. See what happens once I bring it back. You can hear the sweeping of the frequencies moving back and forth. And yes, the graphic is showing you exactly what's going on. It's so cool. Now, I'm going to take advantage of this moment to show you the different these displays or different menus that you have access to whenever you click on these different buttons. We have been working the entirety of this time on program mode, which is what you have seen. And you can tell that even though we're dealing with two different effects, they are quite similar in function. How is that? All of them have this area, which is, well, both of them have this area, and I'm going to bring back both so you can have them both on screen at the same time. You can see that both of them have a master control area, which is going to be displayed here. And in here you can sync everything to the tempo of the track, and affect the different meters and the time signature that you are working on, so on and so forth. Wet, dry, mix controller over here, input and output. Very self-explanatory, and you can see that you got quite similar parameters on both. The difference lies, of course, on the matrix that you got on the H3000. And over here, instead of the matrix, you have access to each and every single one of the repetitions. You can see that the frequency it's set to a particular band. Then you can apply a note, because this guy could be triggered by MIDI. More on that, a much more deep dive into this plugin. The cue, or how much we're affecting the band. Let me show you briefly. You can see that the red one is moving, changing its shape. And of course, what kind of filter. You can see that right now I got going on high pass filters and those band passes. And of course, the delay itself, that could be even control over here, or applying a grid-based delay, which is much more precise. Awesome. And of course, you got a panning knob, and that it's applied and replicated to each and every single one of the 8 bands that you can control, or delays, if you wish. From here onwards, we go to expert, and you can tell that both look horrible, but basically speaking, it's exactly the same parameters that I explained to you right a few minutes ago. It's basically the same principle: turn it on and off, phase, the frequency on which the band delay is being applied, again the MIDI note, the cue, and the kind of delay, and the output, and the panning. It's the same. Over here you got the same. If we can tell, or if we pay close attention to this area, you got here the delay time, which means that if we click on the delay, look at this, and it's the same. So don't, in simple terms, you don't need to actually take a look at the expert mode if you want to go deep into this program, because what you are actually doing on expert is having access to every single one of the parameters of all of the modules over here. And the same applies on the band delays, because on expert mode you have access to all of these guys at the same time, without the graphical representation. And on function, this is where you apply the different sets of modulation that you have access to. Again, this is not a tutorial on how to use the plugin, it's just a showcase of the capabilities and how I managed to get inspired by these plugins, which I gotta say are fantastic. So all in all, this is basically what these plugins are all about. So there you have it, girls and boys. How about that? This plugin is amazing, right? Eventide, it's one of my favorite brands ever. I think it's quite obvious. I have plenty of their devices, and it's due to how amazing they sound, and also because they have a particular charm to them. It's not just a simple delay or a simple reverb. It's the Eventide sound, and it's one that I resonate with quite a lot. I love the quirkiness of the effects and how tasteful they are as well, and sometimes extremely out there. I know that for some people they could be a little bit over the top, but it's because if you don't spend time tweaking around, because this is the whole point, and what makes Eventide great is the tweakability of the devices. And if you just play around with the presets, you're gonna be underwhelmed. So I totally recommend you to spend some time learning your way around them. So if you want me to show you some of my techniques when it comes to the use of these devices, please let me know, because believe me, once you learn your way around these guys, the whole thing explodes. It's fantastic. It's that good. So fanboy mode over. So if you like to support the channel, and if you like to support this kind of content, the best way to do it, is by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify, and also by following us on social media such as Instagram, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Now, girls and boys, as every single time that I meet you, I gotta remind you something. Never, ever, ever let anybody tell you what to dream about, and remember that I will see you when I see you.